My name's Sophie Hawkins, and I've been a practitioner of Ayurveda for about 12 years now. And I got my Ayurvedic practitioner certificate from the Gerson Center in New York. But I certainly had some in-home intensive training with my ex-partner, who's an Ayurvedic doctor, and he was also a naturopath. We ran a naturopathic Thai massage clinic for 10 years out of a home in Wortley Village. And I've been teaching cooking classes now for over 10 years. And I started out in a very small little kitchen where I easily packed 10 people in once in that kitchen on Adelaide Street. And so my knowledge and my experience has really changed to who I am and how I live my life. When I first started with Ayurveda, I was quite cold and dry. And I had just finished yoga teacher training. I met my ex, and within 6 months, people didn't recognize me. So I had worked for a woman for 3 years. I was her only employee in a bookstore. And I met her, and she said, "I know the face, but I can't quite place you, and I don't remember your name." And I said, "Joan, it's me, Sophie," right? So, and even the people that I had gone to yoga teacher training with, we had a reunion after about a year, and they were looking out the window saying, "Who's that coming in?" So that's how much Ayurveda can shift how you look and how you feel. But it has to be done consistently over time. And part of the thing that has to happen is we have to educate our palates. So we almost become like chefs, where we start to taste things in a different way once we have the knowledge about what it is we're supposed to be tasting. And so when I go out to eat now, I'm always tasting a meal, and I can identify which tastes are missing. And so often I'm not satisfied when I go out for dinner. There are very few places that I can say that I would go, and usually they're more Asian, like Korean, Vietnamese, that kind of cooking. They use the 6 tastes in their cooking. They have that knowledge, and it comes from India and has spread to other parts of Asia, Indonesia. My mother was a sugar addict. I grew up on Twinkies and you name any of those Vachon cakes. That was my daily fare. So I had quite a strong sugar addiction for quite a long time that I could not kick, no matter what. And when my lovely daughter was born, I was very interested in wanting to feed her a healthy diet. I had been a vegetarian at that time for probably 6 years, and knew that I needed to feed her a good diet if she was going to be raised as a vegetarian. And the first chance she got to eat meat, she ate meat. She said, "Mom, I need to eat meat," and she was right. So I'm no longer a vegetarian, but I would say that close to 90% of my diet is plant-based. So that's going to be grains, beans, vegetables, those kind of foods, and with very good quality meats and animal-based fats. So those were added into my diet when I first had my first Ayurvedic assessment. I was too cold, too dry, too weak. And the weakness was from not enough animal proteins, particularly living in a cold climate like we do here in Canada. I have had a number of health issues starting very young, with most of my thyroid being removed when I was 11 years old. With macrobiotics, this is very interesting, I grew that thyroid back. And one of the things that is key and central in macrobiotics is sea vegetables. And sea vegetables feed the thyroid. So when I was 30 years old, I had an ultrasound, and the woman said, "You didn't have your thyroid out. It's all here." And it was functioning normally. Well, I grew that back through food. So food is medicine, and medicine is, without food, without diet being proper, medicine is of no use. So always the diet has to be right. And what that diet's going to be is going to be different for each person depending on their constitution and their particular makeup. So we can't say this one diet for every person. But generally speaking, we can look at the Ayurvedic principles and what should guide us to the most healthy diet for ourselves. And that will change as we grow in age. It's different for children than it will be for when we're older and aging. So the diet needs to change. Disclaimer that Ayurveda is a whole entire system of medicine from India that's easily over 5,000 years old. You'll see 3,000, that's a Christian dating based on their view of the world. But it was written 5,000 years ago, so to have a written system of medicine that evolved, you're going to have to go back further to have that, that kind of depth of knowledge at that point in time. Ayurveda consists of psychiatry, pediatrics, general medicine, rejuvenation therapies, wonderful rejuvenation therapies. There's ears, nose, throat, ENT. There's also aphrodisiacs, fertility, a whole treatise on all of these, toxicology, and surgery. So what you're going to get today is a taste, 6 tastes, of the basis of educating our own palates so that we can start to use our own bodies to tell us what we need. And I'll give you a good example of this. Ever since coming back from India, which of course I was there for 9 months, and it was a very vegetarian diet, I came back fairly anemic. And off and on I'm still struggling with anemia, and part of that is I'm at heart a vegetarian. I don't probably eat as much meat as I should. So every once in a while I get iron deficient. And so I have a liquid iron supplement. When I'm iron deficient and I take that supplement, I can't taste the iron in it at all. It tastes sweet to me. As I keep taking it, I start to taste the iron, and at some point it's like, oh, that's like too much. I know I've had enough. I know my iron levels are good. So that's how we use taste when we pay attention to start knowing what our bodies need. When we experience cravings and binging, the only time I've ever been able, I've got many decades on the planet now, hopefully a few more to go. But up until my 40th birthday, I was still having trouble managing binge eating. And I would go for sweet all the time. And I wasn't able to manage that. I mean, I don't even think about it anymore. It's not something I do anymore because I'm cooking with a 6 taste. So once you start to understand why that's so important, and we're going to go through that today, then you can start choosing foods and combining foods using the 6 tastes so that when you have a meal, you're satisfied. You've satisfied every taste bud on your tongue, and your body will be nourished. But until you can cook that way, and it doesn't have to take a lot of time. I can have meal ready in 20 minutes. And I'll show you a handy gadget that's just great for helping with that. But you should be able to cook a dinner and have enough left over for your lunch the next day. You've got a healthy lunch, a healthy dinner. You just need to deal with your breakfast maybe you cook up some khichdi, which we're going to make today. You can have a batch of that and have that for 3 3 breakfasts in a row. It should be pretty easy. You should be able to do it within half an hour once you have some skills and some easy techniques. I don't even cook with recipes anymore. So I'll look at recipes and I'll often see what's missing. I'll add that, and then I'm going by taste. And once you have some basic chef techniques and you cook like a chef, they don't use recipes. They're looking at what's around them, what's in season. They have techniques that they use, and that's how they cook. So let's get started. And I'm going to be turning my back to you a little bit, but I'll come back. And you're going to get the handout with this chart, so don't worry about that. And I'll hand it out after we go through it, because if I hand it out now, you're going to be looking and it's going to be a bit overwhelming. So what are the 6 tastes? Somebody just yell them out.
Bitter.
Oh, there's one that often people will not get, but Sherry's in the know. So bitter, yes.
Sweet.
Sweet, yeah, sure. Obviously. Okay.
Sour.
Yeah. Where'd I put that one?
Salty.
Salty, yes.
Astringent.
Yes. You read the article? All right, good for you. Astringent, that's often one that people, and my writing will get messy, and that's okay, we'll deal with it. All right, and one more.
Spicy. Or hot or whatever.
Yeah, the spices are in that, but the classification, and this is kind of, when you can't decide where something goes, it usually goes in this category. So spicy is right, but there's another word that they use. It's pungent. Yeah. So the Western diet is pretty much sweet, sour, salty. So when we're binging and craving, we're going to go back and forth. Usually we'll go for sweet, and then we'll want some salty, and then maybe some people will go for sour. You know, I was either going for sugar, something sweet, or salt and vinegar chips. So I was getting the salty and sour in those salt and vinegar chips, and then I go back to sweet, right? And you're going to continue to do that until you bring in pungent, bitter, and astringent. What foods would fall under sweet? So, and we're not talking junk foods here. So junk food is not food. It doesn't classify as food. So we're talking real food. What's real sweet food?
Is chocolate considered real food, or is it junk food?
Chocolate on its own is actually, take the sugar out of it. What is chocolate?
Cocoa.
Yeah, and what taste is
Oh,
that?
I guess it'd be more bitter.
That's right. Yeah.
It would be sweet. Huh, interesting.
Oh, no, I put it in the wrong place. Yeah, so real chocolate without the sugar is bitter. Good. So sweet?
You like fruit?
Yep, a lot of fruits are sweet. Some aren't, but most are. Yeah, sweet fruits.
Carrots are sweet.
Carrots, yep. Just yell them out.
Honey.
Honey, yeah, maple syrup. Sugar. Sugar cane is a real food. And when it's not bleached and stripped of its minerals, it can be used in small amounts in cooking for a very good effect, along with all the other tastes. And we have to have sweet. Anyone?
Beets.
Beets, yep, beets are sweet. Squashes.
Brussels sprout.
Sorry?
Brussels sprout.
No.
No.
Well, they can be if you roast them. They can take on a sweetness, yeah, when you roast them. But where would Brussels sprouts fall? Don't be afraid to be wrong. I've been wrong lots. I continue to be wrong sometimes. So, I say sometimes, but, you know. So, Brussels sprouts, where would they fall?
In the I don't know category.
In the I don't know category. There's, they're sulfurous, right? Yeah, I'm gonna put them in here for sure, but they're also astringent. So anything that is going to help you lose weight is going to go in this astringent category. But they're also sulfurous, so they have some pungency. It depends how you cook them. It really does. But we're going to put them in astringent because that's where it is in my... some things will have two things. So let's go with astringent. What else is astringent? Anything that makes your mouth pucker is going to be astringent.
Lime.
Yep. Limes, lemons. It will do that too. Yeah, I would say grapefruits are going to go here, but we also put them in sour.
Does lemons go in sour too? I've always thought of lemons as being sour.
Lemons are sour too, yeah. And they're also astringent. So some things will have two tastes together. Usually lemons are going to go under the more sour because they're kind of heating. But okay, so let's go with more astringent. Okay, beans, lentils. So this is why beans and lentils are such great diet food, because if you just cook them and eat them on their own, they'll have a chalky kind of mouth feel. So chalky, puckering, that's all astringent tastes.
Like, what about spinach? Because it kind of leaves that chocolate.
Spinach, yep. Yeah, raw spinach.
Arugula.
Arugula, more bitter, yeah. Let's put that in here. So see how when we're thinking even of these foods, we're tasting them with our minds, right? We're trying to recall, what does that taste like really, and starting to do that. When I first started learning Ayurveda, I would eat a meal with my ex, and it would be, okay, what do you taste? And we'd play this game, and what did it taste like? What's the other qualities? Because our body doesn't look at food under a microscope. Our body goes by the qualities that it takes in. We're made up of all the elements that we see around us: earth, water, fire, air, and ether, which is more like space. Most of our foods are going to fall into the sweet category, including a lot of meat. Now, astringent meats, anyone know what an astringent meat? What's that? What's something that's recommended on diets? Tuna, right?
Salmon.
Tuna and white chicken meat. Both of those will have more astringency to it than, say, the dark chicken meat. But most meats are categorized as sweet. Some will have a bit more pungent, so when you say something's gamey, deer, moose, that will have, lamb, will have more of a pungent taste to it. But if you chew beef, if you chew a piece of beef until it's almost liquid, if not liquid, which is what we're supposed to do, not swallow big chunks, but if you do that, you will taste how it becomes sweet if you keep chewing it. So, and Ayurveda qualifies food in 3 categories. It's the effect in the mouth, the effect in the gut, and the post-digestive effect. So it's very detailed as to what each food will do for the body. Okay, so I'm going to move us along. What's pungent? That can be the difficult.
All I think of is mushrooms.
Mushrooms are pungent. Yep. And Sherry, you said chilies earlier, and that's right. And what else? Pungent.
Onion?
Onions. Yep.
Garlic.
Garlic.
What about wood peppers go there?
I don't hear that well, so yell it out. I'm sorry.
Where would peppers go? I don't know if they do pungent.
Green peppers.
Red peppers.
Peppers are astringent. It depends how you cook them too. So this is where cooking can change things, right? But if this is also why peppers aren't recommended for people with arthritis. So if you're going towards dry arthritis, this is not a good category for you. You don't want to have a lot of astringent in your diet, because if you ever bite into a green pepper and you know that kind of crispy, spritzy kind of feeling in the mouth, that quality will do the same thing in your joints. So if your joints are already drying out, you've got cold, dry arthritis. There's 3 kinds of arthritis. If you have the cold, dry, according to Ayurveda, this is very different than modern medicine. And this is why some medications will work for one group of people with that disease, but not for a whole other group of people. So it's treating, more of a arthritis that's due to too much astringency in the diet, not enough sweet oiliness in the food, in the cooking. So peppers have that astringent quality to them. They're very good for someone who has excess in the body, who wants to disperse accumulated fats, right? So that's where astringent is very, very helpful if you're wanting to lose some weight. Okay, so let's keep going with pungent. Let's think about spices here.
Cloves.
Yep. Cloves. Under pungent, and you're going to get introduced today if you don't know it, is asafoetida. That's another very, very pungent. Paprika falls in here. Yep, garlic's in here for sure. Okay. So, salty. Let's do salty. Yep. And hopefully sea salt. Not the table salt that's been bleached and stripped of its minerals. So I would think chard is going to go a little more in the bitter though. Most of your greens are going to go down here in bitter. So kale, chard, dandelion, yeah. And we'll talk about what all these tastes do for the body. But of course, bitter is as often medicine is bitter, right? Because we've gone too far in these other directions, usually sweet, salty, sour. So bitter is what will bring us back into balance. The Chinese have a pill that's called the 6 taste pill. And when someone's gone out of balance in any one of these directions, or if it's early on, they'll be given that 6 taste pill to bring them back. Okay, so with bitter, we also have eggplant is in here. One vegetable that I am yet found a recipe that I like. What's something that most of us do every day that is bitter?
Coffee.
Yes. Ding, ding, ding. You're the winner there. All right, coffee.
Is tomato pungent?
Well, it depends on the tomato. They're often going up here in sour. They used to have more sweet sour to them, but they've bred them for looks rather than taste. Unfortunately, our farmers have done a grave disservice to us, except for our lovely organic farmers. Anyone think of anything else that's salty? What did you used to eat by the paper, sheets of paper when you were?
Nori?
Yeah, which is a
Seaweed.
seaweed. Yeah. So my daughter grew up on lots of seaweed. She used to eat sheets of nori like for a snack. She was rarely sick. Hardly ever. I doubt she missed much, except the chicken pox that one year. Yeah, that was the only time. I used to give her a day off school every once in a while because she never had one off for being sick. Salty tuna is also going to fall in here. It's astringent, but it's salty. Soy sauce. which is a fermented, traditionally it's a fermented food. Oh, cottage cheese falls in here, strangely enough. Yeah. And of course there's cheeses that are salty, right? Sour.
Sometimes cherries, you can get sour.
Yep, sour cherries. Yeah, so we have some fruits that are going to come into here. Sour apples.
Yeah.
Yogurt, yes. Okay. Okay, pickles. So fermented foods are often a bit are sour, also sometimes pungent, right? Wine, vinegar. Okay. So there's some more on here that you'll get in your handout. And this is a great chart for you to start to identify, and when you have a food you can say, oh yeah, now I can start to taste that. Sweet is also ghee is in there, which we'll be making today. Cinnamon. I had a very unbalanced, one of the first unbalanced Vietnamese dishes, that Singapore noodles. It had so much cinnamon in it that it was just sickening sweet. So I went and asked for some limes so I could squeeze the limes over to balance the dish a bit, you know, so I could eat it. But cinnamon is also has some pungency to it, has some heat to it, yeah, but it will, so when we're tasting things, we're kind of, what is its main flavor? What is its main quality? But there's often a secondary, yeah, you're right. The sweet taste is classified as earth water, and because it builds body tissue. So anything that's kind of, it'll have some dampness to it. It has moisture, and it has building quality, nourishing quality for the body. So here we have identified examples of the different tastes, and here we're looking at what those tastes actually do for the body. So the sweet builds tissue, so that's why a lot of foods for babies are sweet. A lot of your grains are going to fall in here as well. So often the first food that babies have will be softly cooked grains, softly cooked sweet vegetables, right? You're not going to feed a baby something sour. In fact, I remember the first time that my daughter took a piece of lemon at a restaurant and put it in her mouth, and she made this face that was like, and their eyes open like this, right? So sour wakes you up. And that's why for a long time I would go for the sour taste, and I cooked too much, the taste was too much sour. Because with the thyroid issues, that sour taste kind of wakes me up, right? So it's sour is stimulating. I try not to jump around too much, but I get on a tangent. I have a Vata temperament. I learn quickly, I forget easily, that's why I consult. And also the Vata will tend to jump around a little bit. And the Vata is related more to air and astringent. Air and ether. So too much astringent, too much sour, you start to, will go towards more Vata imbalances, and arthritis is one of those. So too cold, remember I said I was too cold, too dry, that's a tendency of someone with more air constitution. Now, my constitution itself is more tridoshic, is all three, but my condition got to be more excess air because of food and lifestyle. Sour, what do you think sour is? So we have the elements of earth, fire, water. We've got earth and water. We have air and ether. What do you think sour is?
Fire?
Yep. Why would you say that, Sherry? Fire.
Because it would, like the acidity value
Yep.
would create heat.
Yep. That's exactly it. So when you take something sour in, it's heating. If you've ever had a real sour lemonade, you might notice that you have a little bit of sweat here. If you have any foods that are too much sour, just notice that you start to feel warm. And so it's classified as fire and also as earth because it will also build tissue. It's stimulating. It fuels the appetite. So that's how this builds tissue by giving nourishment. This will build tissue by stimulating the appetite and making you eat more. So I once made some borscht when I was first from a recipe. And it was too sour. And I couldn't stop eating it. Because number one, I love beets. But because it wasn't balanced enough, it was too sour, I just could eat it and eat it and eat it. It was like, I can't stop eating this. And my ex tasted it and he said, it's too sour. No wonder you can't stop eating it. It didn't have enough sweet to it. Add some sweet and then it became, oh, now I'm satisfied. Okay. Sour is also anti-flatulent. So it will, and part of that is because it stimulates digestion. So anything that stimulates digestion is going to help increase the enzymatic action in your gut, right? And so it will help you to digest and therefore you won't have as much gas. So often in Ayurveda, a little squeeze of lemon on things at the end, or a little squeeze of lime, that's your astringent and your sour. And that will help to balance a dish that otherwise is just going to be sweet and salty, right? Well, and we're going to do a lot of digestive spices today too. So if you're having gas, you got to pay attention to that because that's a sign that you're not digesting your food well. And that's going to lead to disease over time. So every once in a while you might eat something, oh, it doesn't sit well and you have some gas, but you shouldn't be farting all day long. So people here think that that's normal. Bloating, gas is not normal. It's a sign of digestive problems. And most chronic diseases start with a change in digestion, a problem with elimination. Right? So in Ayurveda, you're always paying attention to your stool, the color of your urine, and how things are digesting. If you can't digest something, it doesn't matter how healthy it is, you shouldn't be eating it. You got to figure out either how to cook that food with digestive spices so that you can eat it, or you need to avoid it until your digestion is stronger. So there's a lot going on now with gluten-free, dairy-free, take this out of the diet, that out of the diet, this is bad. No food is bad. Every real food is going to be therapeutic for someone's condition. It just depends who you are. But nothing is good for you if you can't digest it. So that's a great gift that we have from India is all these digestive spices like cumin, coriander, fennel, fenugreek. All of those spices are very helpful, especially when you're going to eat a lot of beans and lentils. Beans without cumin are basically indigestible. So we want to use those therapeutically so we can easily digest those foods because they're very good for us if we can digest them. Okay, so let's look at what the salty taste does. Who's ever had too much salt and what happens if you had too much salt?
Drink a lot of water.
Yeah. It can cause water retention, which can be a good thing if you are too, shout it out.
Dehydrated.
Yep, too dry. Yep. Salty is good there. We require salt. The heart needs salt. For every drop of urine that you secrete, there's a molecule of sodium that goes with it. So most people in home cooking will not use enough salt because they're afraid of it because of high blood pressure and crazy things like that. If you're using table salt, then yeah, be afraid. So get yourself some good quality sea salt. Some Himalayan sea salt is lovely. There's lots of good quality sea salts on the market. But if you've got table salt, I mean, that could be good for cleaning something. Otherwise, get rid of it. Don't put it in your body. It's been bleached. The minerals have been taken out of it. And that's what's causing a lot of the problems with salt. It has a specific action on the kidneys. So it stimulates kidney function. It's also somewhat building to the body. Like without salt, there's essential functions of the heart that's just not going to work well. So everything affects bone density. A lack of balance will affect bone density, right? Yeah. So for sure. Too much salt is an issue. If it gets out of balance, you're going to get things like gray hair. Think of old, dry, shriveled, right? So the skin's going to get too dried out, baldness, and it will contribute to bleeding disorders. We're too much sweet, so it is going to cause too much buildup of tissue, right? So and then you're going to go towards things like diabetes. That's too much sweet. So if anyone who's going towards diabetes, my ex always used to say, never let the sweet taste stay in your mouth. If you've got a sweet taste in your mouth, you better get rid of it somehow. So you got to take something that's balancing to that, either more salty, and preferably you want to go for bitter. So when my mother was about to go into diabetic coma, she started eating the peels of grapefruit. You know how bitter that is? And incredibly bitter. So she was making a last-ditch attempt to try to balance herself when she was in extreme excess. So the body is always intelligent and always trying to help you out if you listen.
Sophie, what about colitis? Would increasing sour be very beneficial?
Probably not. It depends. You can't just say, what about colitis? Who has the colitis, right? Is it a Vata person with colitis, a Kapha person, or a Pitta person with colitis? 3 different causes, 3 different approaches. And then you have to also look, you can never just look at diet, you also have to look at the person, what's going on in the noggin and the lifestyle of the person as well, right? So you have a Vata, a person who's very light and dry and nervous, and they schedule themselves to the hilt and run around like a chicken with their head cut off, and then they end up with colitis. You can't address that without addressing how they live their life. So, and how they breathe. I've seen irritable bowel, colitis, a lot of digestive issues get better with proper breathing. Most people aren't doing that. Most people, it's up here all day, right? There's a very damaging way to breathe for the body. So you start letting the diaphragm descend, getting movement through the whole digestive tract all day long. That's a very different way to be in the body and be connected with the body than this rabbit fight or flight breathing that most people are doing in our culture. So.